Your state card session remains
and then learning during the tournament.
Not recommend.
Not recommended.
If you like to throw a bunch of woods, I sawed this off. I was feeling so good in practice, and then it's back there. Yep, in the tall grass, but safe.
Throwing a backhand.
Somehow I assumed that it would be OB because I missed the line for so. It was.
And there's a chance.
Yeah, exactly. Just was a beautiful shot. That's what most of us are looking for.
Weekend and go over there and knock it out.
Call meeting to order. Shelley, can you do roll call, please? Here.
Councilman Humphrey is absent. Councilman Latham.
Here.
Vice Mayor Stapleton.
Here.
Councilman Giles.
Here.
Councilman Shipley.
Here.
Mayor Canals.
Here. Thank you, Shelley. I want to invite Jerry Barnes to do our invocation today.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you on behalf of all who gather here tonight. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and the honor of bearing our responsibilities. Help protect the people who risk it all, making sure our lives are safe and secure. I pray for our mayor, city council, and our staff. I am asking that you graciously grant them the wisdom to govern amidst the conflicting interests and issues that face our times, to sense the welfare and true needs of our people, and also to provide us with the leadership to place us firmly on the right path. Allow us the ability to work together in harmony and to find a way to bring personal peace into our lives. We also ask that you help separate the anger from issues as we speak to the problems that face the city. Lord, embrace the Humphreys family as they are dealing with illness that keeps Michael away from us tonight. God, we ask this in your name. Amen.
Freddie, can you lead us in?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Up there.
First, we have summary of current events, and we'll start with Fernando.
I'm actually don't have anything to report tonight.
Just out of the rough here.
Freddie?
Problem.
I have nothing. Thank you, Mayor.
Charlene?
I just have a few things. First of all, we attended the Center for the Arts, the Copper City Players that they put on the live theater there at the Center for the Arts. So we went to that last weekend. They do a great job. It was awesome. And thank you to everyone that bought a ticket. It helps keep that building going. And same to be said for the Mother's Day tea. We served 85 people for the tea this past Saturday. And again, all that money was given to the center for operating expenses. So thank you to everyone that attended. Thank you to everyone that bought a ticket. I see my furry friend there in the back, and I know she's getting a presentation. So all I'm going to say is thank you, Joe and Evo, for what you do. They never turn down a gig ever. Thank you. You do our city proud. And we have a couple new guys that just graduated from the police academy. How cool is that we are recruiting and having people go through the academy and working here? That's great. Thank you, fellas. And I would like to acknowledge Richard and his crew over at the police evidence building that we just had a tour of that before this meeting. What a job well done that is. They redid that building, so we now have proper evidence building, and they did it at a fraction of the cost than if we'd had to hire all that out. So that, please pass that on, Jerry, that we really, all of us were very impressed with what work they did over there. And lastly, Jesse might be going to talk about Cinco. Are you going to thank everybody for buying, whoever bought a burger or a hot dog, from us at the Cobra Valley Youth Group booth on Cinco de Mayo? Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to bring up, I wanted to thank everybody that was involved with ADOT cutting down those poppies. You know, usually they go straight to the dump and they're rendered useless at that point. So I wanted to thank, ADOT, Paul Walter Beek, Hilla County, the City of Gold Public Works Department, BHP, Old Dominion Mine Park, Thea Wilshire, and the various others, DOC, for helping us get those. We took what was cut, and instead of them going into a bag and rotting, we were able to take them up to Old Dominion to hopefully reseed that park there. So I do want to make sure everybody gets thanks for that. We do have other projects coming up with flowers and different things like that, such as a monsoon mix. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Mike?
I just have a few things, Mayor. First of all, I want to remind everybody, high school graduation is next week or the week after. 23rd in Globe, 24th in Miami. So if you guys can attend, I know I'll be at the Globe High School graduation. But we can let those students know how proud we are of them going through graduation. And then I want to thank Jerry and Vince. I've been working some issues up on G Hill. There's been some water pressure issues up there with several families that sometimes they actually lose water. So I've been working with Jerry and Vince, like I said, and we put a meter on that up there near those homes. Kenny, thank you. And we'll be having a meeting probably after end of May, 1st of June, that week time frame with those residents so we can explain to them what's going on, why things are going the way they are. And I know we're putting it in a booster station up there, but that's, what, 6 months out, Kenny, or just a few months? So I think they'll be relieved to hear that and updates for them so they can rest at ease. So thank you guys, I appreciate it. And then, like Charlene said, I went over to the evidence room right before I came here and talked to Chief. And he said John and the whole crew did an outstanding job, so I want to thank you guys. You guys probably saved us a fortune on keeping it in-house. So good work. And the place looks fantastic. So thanks for the tour, Chief. Appreciate it. And then we remind everybody the summer concert schedule at the train depot starts June 1st and it runs through August 31st. So that'll be a nice thing to have downtown. So we can all go and appreciate that and give us all something to do on, I believe they're Saturday nights. So that's, what, 3 months worth of concerts. So that'll be starting in June. And lastly, I too would want to thank Joe Bracamani for what he did with the feds and everything. This is quite an award, and it just shows what Joe does and all of the officers, fire, police, and everybody, what you guys do that a lot of people don't realize what you guys do. So thank you. I appreciate it. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mike. I want to recognize a few individuals in the audience tonight. Larry Alderman, former councilman, always nice to see you here, Larry. We have Steve Stratton from ADOT and also a board member of Southern Gila County EDC. And I see Jordan Reardon, our Justice of the Peace, in the back also. Thank you for attending. First, we hit another milestone. This is the first time our council meetings are now live streaming to the public. So this is the first shot. We've been doing a couple of times with just the council, and now it's able to go to the public. Now they can view it online as it's happening. So thank you, Daniel, for making that happen. And lastly, I just want to recognize Councilman Shipley. I know he hasn't said much, but he was awarded the Flynn Brown Award, Arizona Champion, Central Arizona. Congratulations, and mainly a lot of his work for that's a huge award and a lot of work with the youth club, and that was the main focus of it with the award. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And Paul, that's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, real quick, I want to keep this somewhat short, but just on a couple of events that have been mentioned, this Saturday, May 18th at 9:30 a.m. is the Hats Off Champagne Brunch at Dream Manor. I know also the Hamburger Fry is May 31st, one of my personal favorites, that the Historical Museum, and the Sunrise Challenge, the 5K up at Round Mountain Park, that's sponsored by the Globe Rotary. I will tell you that as the current president of the Globe Rotary, it starts at 6 and goes to 7:30, and I will not be there. Okay, because the check-in is from 4 to 5. So I wish them all luck the night before, and but if anybody wants to, run up and down Round Mountain Park, that's the time to be. Lastly, I did take 3 days off last week as I went down to Tucson to attend the graduations. There were actually 4 ceremonies for my twin daughters, Molly and Reagan. They're both graduated as Wildcats with honors. And don't be upset too much, but they will be now, both are going through master's programs at ASU. So, you know, they kind of go.
Paul, why don't you tell us what they're pursuing their master's degrees in?
Well,
this is interesting.
So Molly got a degree in nutrition and got a dietetic internship combined with a master's program at ASU. Reagan, it was a public health bachelor's and is accepted as the Marvin Andrews Fellowship. We'll end up with a master's in public administration, but the Marvin Andrews Fellowship is a program for people who want to be city managers. And so it's a, okay.
Would you want to do that?
So, you know, the legacy may continue. Yes. So Marvin Andrews is a very, very influential city manager of the city of Phoenix. It's a wonderful program run by George Pettit, very interconnected with the city managers. And I got to say, Dad's a little proud. So,
Have her turn her after.
what's that? Oh, yeah. So slow down there.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Next, we have our community call to the public. At this time, any citizen desiring to speak on a matter that is not scheduled on this agenda may do at this time. This is a time for the public to comment to members of the city council as a whole. All comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please fill out a request to speak card, and they are located at the back of the chambers here, and turn it into our clerk. This is also a reminder about a speaker card if you want to speak on an item that's scheduled for the agenda. And you'll have to, please fill out a speaker card at the back and turn it into the clerk. I do have one card here, but that is for the agenda, not the call to the public. Do we have any call to the publics?
He's filling one out.
Jeannie, can you ask if he wants to speak to call the public or if he wants to speak to the agenda item?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can speak
You're here
now,
for 5A. Just put 5A on the corner of it then, okay? We'll call you up then.
Yeah, and in between now and that event, or even during that, if you all of a sudden get motivated and you want to come up and speak, just grab a card and you can come up and speak and get a card later. So I don't want to make it any barriers for anybody who does want to speak.
We want everyone to speak. Everybody that wants to speak, speak. If you haven't filled out a card, just trot right back there and get one. Don't let that stop you. They can only toss you out, you know.
We'll go to special presentation and ceremonial matters. So first we have Central Arizona Government's update of the advance payment agreement with the City of Globe. And we have our Executive Director from CAG, Andrea Robles.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. On behalf of the Central Arizona governments, I would like to thank you for providing CAG with the IGA advance prepayment agreement during the government shutdown back in, I believe it was January or February. We want to recognize the City of Globe, members of the council, staff, and the mayor for stepping up and being a leader in the CAG region. We look forward to the upcoming projects and working with the City of Globe in the new fiscal year. And before you today, I have a check with the remaining balance of $41,000 to present to the City of Globe. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. And we'll turn that over to our clerk.
Okay.
And, thank you.
Andrea, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming up to present that. And Yvonne, our finance from CAG is also here. Next, we have item B, proclamation for the 50th anniversary of Municipal Clerks Week, May 5th through 11, 2019. I'll read that proclamation. Proclamation, 50th anniversary of Municipal Clerks, May 5th through the 11th, 2019. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants. And whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides a professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishment of the office of the municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, El Gameros, Mayor Glow, do recognize that the week of May 5th through 11th, 2019 was Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our city clerk's office and to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. So we want to recognize our city clerk, Shelley, and we'll present this, and we also have a gift from our council to you, Shelley, for appreciation. You're always there. You're always thinking, for the best of the city, and I truly appreciate it. I'm sure everybody does. I don't know if you guys wanted to say anything to her.
I would, absolutely, Shelley. Thank you for being there all the time. Phone call away, walk away. You're awesome. Keep up the good work.
Yes, Shelley Salazar rocks. Even when council people come into the city hall all angry. And maybe they might have their voices a little escalated and she just screws around and makes it all better.
Where's that city manager?
Where is that guy? Yeah. You do an awesome job. Thank you.
Amazing job. You do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
So if we can, as a council, go in the front, we got the paper. We want to get a picture, and we'll present you with a proclamation.
I was going to get that. Yeah, Freddie was going to take it. Remember, it's all on camera.
You got the card?
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is for me.
As long as somebody does, right?
Smile.
We enjoyed your daughter Saturday night. She was a pleasure.
That's gonna still show.
Ruin the oak finish.
Yeah.
So next we have swearing in ceremony for new Glow police officers, Trenton Clatterbuck and Patrick Martinez. Chief Walters.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and to all of Patrick and Trenton's family that's obviously here for this. No? This is kind of a big deal for us. First of all, it's National Police Week this week, and to graduate the academy and be sworn in during that is kind of a big deal for them. For the Glow Police Department, this is the first time in many years that we actually sent somebody to the police academy. Both Trent and Patrick were fortunate enough to be the inaugural class of the Southeast Law Enforcement Training Academy that just opened up down in Douglas. It's an excellent training academy. I was fortunate enough to go down with Staff Sergeant Haynes to witness their graduation. I heard nothing but great reviews from their class sergeant and their recruit training officer down there, so they did a phenomenal job, and I think they're excellent additions to the police department. So if I can start with Trenton Clatterbuck, please step up. Officer Clatterbuck comes to us from Navajo County. He's worked for the last many years with the Medical Examiner's Office as an investigator, and prior to that, he was in Maryland as a police officer there. He has a tremendous amount of experience, and he's going to be an excellent addition to the Glow Police Department. Judge?
Good to see you.
Do you have family here, Trent? You want to come down and hold the Bible for you? It was really smooth there.
The whole crew. Aren't you guys proud of your dad?
I can swear in your entire family.
We're covered.
Congratulations. Mayor,
That's good. We got
council,
5 with
pleasure
1.
For you this evening. Of the public, likewise, it is my pleasure and my honor to stand here tonight. And sir, if you would be so kind as to place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. I state your name, please. Trenton Lattimore. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. That I will support. That I will support. The Constitution. The Constitution. Of the United States. Of the United States. And the Constitution. And the Constitution. And laws. And laws. Of the state of Arizona. Of the state of Arizona. That I will bear. That I will bear. True faith. True faith. And allegiance. And allegiance. To the same. To the same. And defend them. And defend them. Against all enemies. Against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. Foreign and domestic. And that I will faithfully. And I will faithfully. And impartially. And impartially. Discharge the duties. Discharge the duties. Of police officer. Of police officer. According to the best. According to the best. Of my ability. Of my ability. So help me God. So help me God. Congratulations.
Would Patrick Martinez please come down? We actually selected Patrick because he looks like he belongs on the cover of GQ magazine. And after looking at some of the people like myself that are actually on, it's going to be nothing but an improvement for us. Patrick doesn't have any law enforcement experience. This is first right out of the box for him. He did extremely well at the police academy. He's been extremely dedicated. Both him and Trent have worked great together. They've been suite mates and carpool mates for the last since January. And hopefully a lot of the experience that Trent brings to the job has rubbed off on Patrick, and we can't wait to get him out there and get him started on FTO. Patrick, do you bring family down here with you? Come on down. Oh, good. That's good.
She's pretty interested, isn't she? Yeah.
Thank you, Chief. Congratulations and welcome. Thank you, sir. If you would raise your right hand and your left hand on the Bible. If you would repeat after me, please.
I know.
State your name, please.
Yeah, it's definitely
Do
keep it.
solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support.
That I will support.
The Constitution.
The Constitution.
Of the United States.
Of the United States.
And the Constitution.
And the Constitution.
And laws.
And laws.
Of the state of Arizona.
Of the state of Arizona.
That I will bear true faith.
That I will bear true faith.
And allegiance.
And allegiance.
To the same.
To the same.
And defend them. Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic.
And that I will faithfully.
And I will faithfully.
And impartially.
And impartially.
Discharge the duties.
Discharge the duties.
Of police officer.
Of police officer.
According to the best.
According to the best.
Of my ability.
Of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, both of you.
Mayor and Council, with the addition of both Trent and Patrick, we have 2 more officers that we're in the process of hiring by the end of the month. That will literally put us on paper fully staffed on the road. We won't recognize that for several months because of training, but we've made great strides in getting there, and this is the caliber that we're looking for day in and day out. So if anybody in the audience has a relative or a friend that is interested in law enforcement, please have them come down and apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Next, we have recognition of Fire Marshal Joe Bracamonte and the Globe Fire Department K-9 EVO for their work in assisting the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Chief Robinson.
Jeremy? I don't know. I just emailed you something.
Mr. Mayor, council members, members of the public, if I could, I'd like to invite Captain Bracamonte and Evo down. It's always the dog that draws the crowds. So. On April 24th, Globe Fire Department K-9 EVO and her handler, Captain Joe Bracamonte, were recognized by the Department of Justice for their work in assisting the Federal Bureau of Investigation and other law enforcement partners in dismantling a violent criminal organization on the Navajo Reservation. That gang, known as the Redskin Kings, or RSK for short, was based in the community of Lukachukai. Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Phoenix office of the FBI, Mike Caputo, described the gang as one of the most violent gangs we have ever seen. He went on to state that the community of Lukachukai was essentially being held hostage by this violent criminal organization. In a press release from August 10th, 2018, Special Agent Bradley Smith of the FBI's Gallup resident agency detailed the portion of the case which ultimately led to Captain Bracamonte and Evo's involvement. It involved the murder of 3 individuals over the span of 3 days in 2014. The victims were murdered, dismembered, burned, and then buried. K-9 Evo was able to assist in locating 2 homicide victims whose remains were burned and buried in a remote location 14 months prior to K-9 Evo being involved. Following these separate alerts by K-9 Evo, an excavation of the area led to the discovery of the remains at a depth of over 7 feet. As a result of this investigation, a total of 8 individuals pled guilty to numerous crimes and received sentences ranging from 10 years up to 50 years. This case is a clear example of the value that K-9 teams can bring to an investigation. K-9 Evo and Captain Bracamonte have been and continue to be a valuable asset to our community and surrounding areas.
We have a certificate here from our city council. And it reads, City of Globe Above and Beyond Award is hereby granted to Fire Marshal Joe Bracamonte and K-9 EVO for their diligent work assisting the Federal Bureau of Investigations in a homicide case on the Navajo Reservation that led to the conviction of 8 individuals who received sentences ranging from 10 years up to 50 years, awarded on this 14th day of May 2019 with appreciation from the Globe City Council.
Sorry, Paul, I'm going to move this. No, okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the past and present mayor and council for their continued support of our K-9 program. This is like the Super Bowl of K-9. You just like the drug dogs that want to get that load vehicle. We want to, do what we do. But the reward we got out of this, it was a team effort between the FBI, BIA, and other local law enforcement agencies. Our reward to us was giving the community back to the members of Lukachukai and the Navajo Nation. That was our reward for what we did. K-9 Evo and I were just a small part of it. And Chief Robbins looked at me like, Joe, what are you gonna say? If I could have Glow PD, this wasn't scripted, Chief has no idea what I'm doing. Can I have Glow PD, Chief, and if we have any off-duty or full-time firefighters come up to the front? Yes, Chief Walters. Verdugo, Officer Powers, Glow PD up here, our newest officers. Okay, the reason I'm calling these gentlemen up to the front is it's way too often that when people get recognized, like myself, I kind of get teary-eyed here, that they forget who got them where they're at, okay? Sergeant Haynes, I think 6 years ago, called me up for a K-9 deployment for article search. K-9 Evo found it. with support from fire and police, we would not be standing up here. Chief Walters, right behind you. If you could take that out, and this is the certificate or award, if you will, that was received or was given to me by the Department of Justice, FBI, and his family will never stand alone. Thank you, brothers.
I like it about that much. Chief, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
No, you can't have it, sorry. Put it on my wall. Well, Light.
Little boy. Little boy.
Okay, also I'd like to thank the community for supporting us. Thank you.
Our last presentation, we have an update presentation by the Curb Appeal Committee, and we have Joe Scammell to explain some of the great work they do as volunteers.
Either click up there. Yep. Point it towards this thing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. And thank you, citizens, for supporting all the efforts that we do in this community. To blight or not to blight seems to be a subject that everybody has an opinion on. And if I can get this to work, we'll be on our road. Which one?
The arrow.
This one?
That one? Yeah, and then if you speak into the mic.
Shelley's invaluable. And where do I point this thing?
Right down here.
Ah! Well, I tried a ceiling, but it didn't work.
Is it going? No. Is it plugged in?
Yeah.
Can I see real quick? If you say click, we will hit the button. Okay.
Click.
Just hit the advance here. No, not that one. Okay, that works.
In March of this year, there was a presentation by the code enforcement officer as to the methods and operandi that she uses to do her job. There was also discussion regarding the creation of a blight enforcement task force. Click. Our CEO, code enforcement officer, has a very hard job, and she does a darn good job at it, and I commend her for it. But we also have some people in the community that want to help. Her preparation of legal documents, appearance in court, and follow-up to the complaints and to the property owner comments take most of her time. And what we would like to do, and what we have been doing since 2012, click. Click again, please. Is continue to operate as a citizen committee to identify and report potential blight. Nowhere in this do we plan to enforce. We are going to be the eyes and ears of the Code Enforcement Department, and we have been. There have been other committees in history, in Globe. There was a committee for the Broad Street, limited to Broad Street. There was a committee for the Historical District, limited to the Historical District. And there was a Highway 6070 Beautification Committee. This was a 3-jurisdiction committee. It folded for some reason. They never called me back for another meeting. And then I got on the Curb Appeal Committee. Click, please. It was organized in 2016 after a city-sponsored committee was disbanded. And I don't recall the original reason for the disbandment. We received no monetary support or recognition from the city. We are comprised of citizens who knew blight in their own personal areas. Our goals were to identify serious blight, not tall weeds or grass that wasn't cut to 2 inches. We identify the properties that are examples of good maintenance. There are many properties, especially on Cedar Street, you've seen them. They look like the San Francisco houses with a lot of color. They're very clean and they're organized. We review only commercial and non-commercial properties within the Globe city limits. We use the existing Globe codes as a basis for the reports. We observe, document violations without incursion on private property. We do this from the street. We never step on anybody's property. And we maintain neutrality in reporting, and this seems to be a key issue. We don't know who owns the property, and we're not out to get any one person or government. Click, please. We have been active from 2016 to 2017. Now, why only those years? 2016, we started. We discovered and reported over 70 major blight conditions. Major blight conditions. All complaint reports were submitted to the city with supporting photography. The committee is now inactive, but not disbanded. We're inactive because the city hired a code enforcement officer, and we wanted to give her as much latitude as possible to do her job. We continue to monitor those items that we reported to see if they've been corrected or if they've gotten worse. We have submitted additional reports. When citizens come up to us and say, I saw this, or I'd like to know about that, we will fill out the form submitted to the city, and that's the end of it. In my office, which is a small office with 2 desks, 4 computers, and looks like my wife has got all her stuff stuck in there, is a map of the central portion of Globe. Notice the pins. At one time they were color-coded, they aren't anymore. But each of them is a location with a serious blight as of 2017. That's 2 years ago. Some of those have been corrected. Notice the black lines. They indicate the districts. Unfortunately, District 5, because of its location, took most of the complaints. District 4 came very close. Click, please. Typical of the properties that we have identified, the one on the left has been corrected. Tremendous amount of garbage out in the front, and it was there for weeks. The one on the right still exists. This is over on Silver Street. There are 3 buildings. They look like they might fall down in the next windstorm. Click, please. The one on the left has been corrected. The trash has been picked up. In addition, that building has been removed. The Code Enforcement Office is doing its job. The one on the right, unfortunately, still exists. I'm not going to tell you where it is. You'll see it if you drive around town. Click, please. The one on the left has not been corrected. The one on the right has. That was number 1. It's up by the dog park. And some of you may be familiar with that particular building. This is only the only picture I put on here because the rest of them meant I had to go on the property to get them. So we don't show them. Next, please. The benefit of civilian or citizen involvement is it gives the CEO more time to attend to those enforcement efforts that require legal capability. It provides a visible city involvement in the identification of blight. And most important, there's no additional cost to the city. We don't get paid. We don't ask for gas money. We do it because we're citizens interested in getting the blight corrected. I talked to a couple who moved into this area 4 months ago. I said, what did you see when you came to find a place to live in Globe? And they told me. They went to many of our realtors. They gave them a price range. The realtors took them out, showed them the properties. They are from the valley. So obviously the money they had offered for the house was less than it would cost for something in the valley. They looked at these properties and said they look like junk. I'm not placing any blame on the realtors. They're doing their job. but our houses are sold at a higher price than they're worth because of blight. That one's not supposed to be in there. Next one.
That was the last one.
Oh, it's the last one. Good. Thank you for the opportunity. I will not field questions because everyone has their own opinion. But we would like to continue working as a committee out of the reins of the city and doing the job that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and your committee for your work you do. Next, we have consent calendar. Matters listed under the consent calendar considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion, one vote. Public hearing items are designated with an asterisk. Prior to consideration of the consent agenda, the mayor will ask whether any member of the public wishes to remove a public hearing item for separate consideration. Members of the council and/or staff may remove any item for separate consideration. Item A, consideration of waiver of Section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule to allow action on the balance of the consent agenda. Accounts payable, $444,800.88. Consideration of approval of council minutes. February 12, 2019, meeting minutes. February 26, 2019, meeting minutes. Consideration of agreements and purchases less than $25,000. Consideration of the building permit report. Consideration of the fleet report. Consideration to approve the fiscal year 18-19 third quarter distribution of bed tax funds in the amount of $5,489.55 to the Gila County Historical Society from account number 10-51-51925, General Fund Community Organization Bed Tax. And item F, consideration of the agreement between the City of Globe and the Southern Gila County Economic Development Corporation to provide executive director support for the promotion, development, and enhancement of economic development. Do we have anybody from the audience, from the staff, or from the council that would want to remove any of these items?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I would, I'm sorry. If I may, I would like to remove item F. If there's any questions on our agreement, I know this has been long going, and I'd like to remove it just to, if there's a discussion about it.
Then I move to approve the agenda without item F.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstain? Motion passed. So item F is consideration of the agreement between the City of Globe and the Southern Gila County Economic Development Corporation to provide executive director support to the promotion, development, and enhancement of economic development.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I feel that Linda would be better to address these questions, although I can too. And also I know that Steve Stratton and Neil Jensen are in the audience who are members of the EDC. So I'm going to pitch it to Linda, and unless you have any questions for me directly, seeing none.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is such an exciting night to me. We've been working on this for, I believe it's 11 months now. And I think that for the city, for the EDC, and for our communities, this is definitely a win for all. Are there any questions that I could answer?
No question?
I don't have any.
And I appreciate, I know we have Neil Jensen in the audience, we have Steve Stratton. Again, this has been a long-going thing for the past 11 months, and we finally came to a contract that satisfied both parties, and I agree with Linda. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a great thing that we're going to work together and really enhance our community, not just the City of Globe, but Southern Gila County, our community.
Right, and I've already reached out to Winkleman and Hayden so that we can make a tour of those communities and let them know that we would love them to become more active members on our EDC board. And I'd like to thank Steve Stratton and Neil Jensen, both board members of the EDC, as well as Mayor Gameros for helping to facilitate this. Again, very exciting for our communities.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Call for the vote, then. Or you have a question?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment if I could. I would like to thank Mr. Stratton, Mr. Jensen, the Globe staff for working these details out. You know, very involved members of our community, and I know that their interests lie in the best interests of this community. And so I truly support this, and I offer my support in not just now, but as we move forward, because there's a path ahead. You know, we've started this maybe a couple years ago with our economic development processes and thoughts and direction, and I really am liking to see how other agencies and other members of this community, and I'm not just saying any member, but you know, these are leaders in our community that are buying into this. So thank you both for your participation in this, Mr. Stratton and Mr. Jensen.
Thank you, Freddie. Go ahead, Linda.
I did want to mention that on Thursday, we've been invited to be part of an economic development roundtable for Central and Northern Arizona. We're considered a little bit of both. So economic development practitioners from all the different communities are coming together to talk about what is going on in their communities. Many elected officials are going, major industries are going. There's over 100, I believe the count is up to 120 people, which is great considering that most of these communities are from rural. So this is going to be a great day to kind of come together and find out what others are doing, and of course sharing of ideas and resources. These other practitioners in these communities have really become my extended team, and I've learned a lot from them through our association with Arizona Association for Economic Development, which is facilitating the gathering. So I know a lot of our council are going, Councilman Leatham, I want to say this correctly, Mayor Gameros, and Councilman Giles, and who are we missing? Oh, and Paul, of course, Paul's going. But I'm driving, so don't worry.
Good thing.
So again, I thank you all for going. I think it's going to be a great day to go.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Linda, before they vote, if this is passed and approved by council, technically, what does this do?
Technically, what this does is it's an agreement between the city and the EDC board to offer administrative capacity. So I would be acting as the executive director for the EDC board. Really, our strategies and action plans should be in alignment, because what we are driving, we should be partners in that. And we're working closely with the town of Miami and now with the other communities in Southern Gila County. Currently, we have a very good working relationship with the town of Payson, and Gila County has become very active in this association and in supporting our endeavors.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, and Linda, and so this has no impact on the bed tax distribution situation or the process?
Not at all. In fact, it's a great way. Pardon?
It's independent of that.
Independent of that. It's a way for the EDC to drive projects and our action plan. So it becomes, project funding, basically.
Exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Neil.
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other comments or questions, I motion that we approve item F as read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item F. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion pass. Thank you. Go to new business. And item A on new business is presentation by representatives of right-of-way disposal regarding service levels, safety, and recycling with possible direction on contract and possible contract amendments. Paul.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this agenda item is built into a two-part. Jeremy from Right Away, I'm not going to try to butcher his last name, I've done it so many times before. I'll let him introduce himself. Is here to talk about, RAD is our contractual provider of solid waste services. And he is, we've, implementing the contract, there have been a lot of questions about the service levels, about some changes in safety policy that RAD is underdoing, and about recycling, generally the market in internationally, excuse me, and how it impacts City of Globe. And so we brought Jeremy up here to talk about some of the changes going on with his company, and then we're going to talk about how that impacts Globe, and then finally we'll talk about some possible changes on the contract. But I am going to kick it off with allowing Jeremy to come up, introduce himself and his companion, and then he's going to share with you some information starting out with that. Then allow council to ask questions, and then we can then go to the cards from the speaker cards, and we'll wrap up with a discussion about contract modification. So Jeremy, if you want to come up.
And just a reminder to anybody in the audience, if you do want to speak to this item, please fill out a speaker card and turn it into our clerk so you'll be acknowledged.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Jeremy Takis with Right Away Disposal. I'm one of the founding members, so I've been with them since 2007, and we've been doing the City of Globe since I believe 2010, maybe 2012. 2010. So I'm familiar with the city, familiar with the region. Been in the industry for 20 years now. A couple things I do want to talk about. I know the hot topic is probably service, and then we got service and safety, and a few of them go hand in hand. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the challenges we're running into and what we're doing to solve and prevent those, and feel free to interrupt if you have any questions. And I don't have a scripted presentation, so you're more than welcome to have a discussion along the way. Some of the issues that we've having on the service level side has to do with two things, equipment and then the personnel to run the equipment. So over the past probably about 6 to 8 months, we have had a new driver force. We've had a little bit of a turnover where we've had people retire, and we've had people that have headed off to other states or other companies, other industries. When the economy picks up, it's really difficult to keep CDL drivers on. So one of the challenges we've had is finding a driver that wants to do Globe, because this is a very demanding route, and then can do it in the time that we're given in a legal limit to cover the area. Some of the challenges that we're running into that we've come across on the safety as we're going through and training these new drivers is there's several areas where we just found there wasn't proper access, and we've always known this. So a few things that we've always had to do is we've had to run certain trucks that may not be the ideal truck that we want to run for the city, but because of the wires, there's several wires, alleys, things like that we had to run a shorter truck in so we don't tear down the wires. 13.6 is the legal height of wires, and you run into an issue where they kind of sag over time, whether it's phone or electrical or cable. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. I have had that happen in our time here where we have taken down wires and we've had to pay for the damages, and that's obviously a cost that isn't calculated when you're servicing it. So that's something that we're trying to avoid. We've had it where in some of the tight alleyways, we've hit air conditioning units that are window units. We've had to replace those. So there's been several challenges with just the access to getting them. So a few things that we've looked at doing recently is not servicing the alleys and seeing if we can find other alternatives that make it work out for everyone. It may not be ideal, but as far as safety for everyone and the access, we're trying to find a happy median to make that work. The other big challenge that we're running into is we found some areas that have very long backups, and these trucks are very large. You cannot see out of the back. We do have rear backup cameras, but there's several blind spots, and they're just a very large piece of equipment. And when you back up for an extended period of time, it just really increases the risk. There's, you can Google it, and there's all types of stories about the waste industry. I believe it's the 5th most dangerous industry, and there's people that get ran over, backed over. There's lots of injuries, and people they get killed in the industry. So we're trying to really make sure that we don't have that situation happen. Safety is our absolute #1 value, so that is something that we've really put a lot of focus on over the past year, and that is part of the reason where we've had some of the issues along with service has kind of faded in with safety.
Sir, I have a question for you.
Go for it.
Tell me how many times that's happened here in Globe, some horrible tragedy where somebody's gotten run over or killed or what have you.
In Globe, none. In Arizona, it has happened several times. So if I said one time, it would be way too many. So luckily, it has happened 0 times.
What changed over the course of, from 2012, I think that's what you said, you came here and started servicing Globe, to now? Backing out of these alleys never was an issue for you.
It's always been an issue that we've had. There's several reports that we've had along the way where we've damaged different things, and we've always had this type of an issue. And really what we took a look at was company-wide, we really put a big emphasis on safety. Unfortunately, it wasn't always a huge emphasis, and I hate to say that, and I'm one to be responsible for that, and that's something that we've really decided, that's the most important thing is that everyone goes home safe. Is it more important than the trash getting picked up? I feel that it is. So that's something that we've really taken a turn on. What areas do we have that we need to focus on that being? So that's one thing that we've really just kind of pushed over the past year of let's look at all the situations that we have that aren't safe. And then what we've also found is servicing these issues, they cost a lot of money when something goes wrong. And we've had some really dangerous situations throughout the industry as a company as its own. And that's something that we're really trying to find those ahead of time so that way we don't have to deal with the aftermath of not planning ahead on that. Apologize, let me get some water. Just in safety alone, within the past year, what we've done is we've put camera systems in all of our trucks that have 5 cameras that monitor the driver, the front, the back, the side, every aspect of it. It does video it live. It does have GPS. It lets us know if they break the speed limit, if they roll a stop sign, anything along those lines. It lets us know that. We get the videos and we can monitor. What we've found is ever since we've been doing that over the past year, the incidents that we've had, and a lot of our incidents might be minor, whether it's hitting a mailbox or rear-ending a car. I mean, what's the difference between a mailbox and a kid? Luck. So that's something that we've really put a lot of emphasis on, and we've seen as a company-wide the minor incidences and even the larger incidences have drastically decreased. So I feel that we are heading in the right direction by putting an emphasis on that. Unfortunately, there is some issues that go along, some growing pains, some learning pains where we have to kind of go through that amongst our customers and our drivers and everything. But it is definitely a direction that I feel is the best direction for the city as a whole.
Thank you. Mr. Wade. Ready? So thank you for being here today. And I fully support the safety factors. One loss of life and property damage is one too many. But you do provide service.
Correct.
And so have you developed a plan because you're backing away from some service because of safety situations, have you developed a plan to mitigate or correct or even provide that service? Granted that you're taking safety into consideration, we still need the service, correct? So have you developed a plan or a situation on how you're going to remedy that situation?
Yeah, every scenario that we feel is unsafe, there's always a solution of how you could do that service. The problem is sometimes that solution is not one that is, one, cost effective, or two, ultimately what the consumer or what the resident wants. But every scenario we are able to provide a solution, and sometimes that solution is we need that container to be where we feel that we have proper access to service that container.
Which means further away out of the alley, or maybe some other location that your truck can get to it.
Absolutely, yeah. Or or maybe there needs to be an area at the end of the street where the truck can turn around. If it doesn't have an area for the truck to turn around, then if the city wanted to look at what it would take to make an area to turn around, that would be one thing. Obviously, that costs money, so that's sometimes can be the issue. The cheap scenario a lot of times is just new placement for the equipment to get serviced.
Okay. Mike?
What about, and thank you too for coming, Jeremy, hauling cans out from the alley to the streets. You guys used to do that. I talked to one of your drivers a few weeks ago. He said they weren't allowed to do that anymore, being that they would be parked in the major thoroughway, and the driver was possibly afraid of getting mugged. Why, I don't know, he said that.
Okay.
In the alleyway. But I understand driving through the alleys is dangerous, but prior to or after that, when they stopped doing that, they would always come, run down the alley, grab the cans, bring them out, dump them, and take the cans back. Now the driver says he won't do that.
And that's something that we could definitely look at if we want to do it, where we figure out a cost to do that, and then we want to go that route. That's absolutely something that I don't mind looking at doing. That type of service is above the standard quoted rate, so that's something that I can absolutely look at doing.
So they were doing something above the normal rate for the last year or so.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We're doing something that was above the normal.
Without a doubt, yes.
Last year and a half, 2 years.
That's correct.
And another concern I have is the elderly. A lot of these people, like up on 2nd Street, they can't pull their cans out from the alley. It's behind their house. And one of my constituents is 80 years old, and she can't push her can out in the alley, or from the alley to the front of her house, so her neighbors are doing it for her.
And we could look, I mean, there's a million case-by-case situations that we could look at and see what's the ideal alternative for that. Sometimes if we're the placement of the container, it's not easy to get the container there. Well, sometimes you can just bring the trash to that container. So not always is it an ideal situation and an alternative that people like, but usually we are able to come up with a scenario that works for everyone.
You said you had some issues getting drivers with CDLs or keeping those drivers. Have you looked locally to see if there...
We have posted, we used to have a local driver originally when we started this contract, and then he got a job at the mines, and he went to the mines. So I have not looked lately, and that's something we absolutely could look at. But we have gone that route in the past, and we did not have any luck. But that is something that we could look at. And it's not just the driver to Service Globe; it's drivers in general. As a whole, that it's when the economy picks up, it makes it real challenging to get employees in general.
So why all alleys? I mean, there's some alleys that are, double the width of other alleys. This is an old mining community.
Absolutely. And I'd have to look at each individual alley. I know that my supervisors went through.
No alleys whatsoever is what we were told.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's also height too. The height becomes an issue. It's not necessarily the width, it's the height, and the alleys generally have the same configuration on the height of the power lines before it. I know that we got a map from the cities that had all the alleyways highlighted, and we had the vast majority of those also highlighted. There might have been one or two that we didn't have highlighted that they did. We can look at those one or two if that's how we want to do it, but it's generally not the width. It's the width in I believe it's Broad Street in the city or in the commercials. In the residential alleys, a lot of times it's the height. And we have had issues where we took down those power lines because the 13.6 is not the height that a lot of them are at.
Mayor?
Fernando?
I happened to be on the council when we negotiated the first contract with right-of-way disposal. And I know that in that contract, we had asked for right-of-way to consider helping those residents that couldn't move the can, and that was part of the agreement. And also part of the agreement was that you would service the alleys in those hard-to-serve streets. Now, I know that since then, the contract has been redone. I'm not so familiar with that, but did those items get removed or modified, or is it just something that you have to look at now because you're trying to
I don't know exactly the terms of the differences, to be honest with you. One thing that's changed over the years is the configuration of the trucks, the size of the trucks. They're making the cabs bigger. They're making them more accessible, better visibility. And that's something since we've gotten rid of the alleys in the past couple of weeks, we are running a different style truck. So it is a newer truck. The trucks we're running now are under a year old. And we weren't running old trucks by any means, but we were buying a certain spec of truck that's the best application, and we aren't able to run that. So that's one of the benefits is now we can really run the ideal equipment for servicing this type of location.
And then the other point I would just like to consider is when we wrote that contract, we asked for you to prioritize hiring local drivers. And, you know, in good faith, we agreed to that. But my understanding is you're having someone drive from most likely the valley somewhere, so they're spending 3 hours commuting. Could that be factored in, that we could hire someone local, and maybe that would, you factor in those 3 hours, that could save you?
Love to do that. When we initially started it, we had the trash driver that we ran out of Globe, and we had the location here that the truck was able to park at. The recycle we always ran out of the valley because that's where the material had to go. So it just made it a lot more challenging to, if you're driving all the way to the recycle center, to have the driver up here. I would love to, and I don't know if we've pursued that lately. So I mean, I'm gonna let you know up front that that probably has not been pursued, but I would love to find another driver up here. For one, they know the city well, and that helps us out. For two, if we want to be honest, it's probably cheaper, so that works out also. I just know that in the past when we did try that, we didn't have any luck, and then it probably got forgotten, to be honest with you. But absolutely, without a doubt, I'd love to put more ads up here, and if we can find qualified employees or qualified CDL drivers, I'd love to do that. The one we had here worked great for a long time before the mines took him, so.
Yeah.
I just had a question about, you said that you rolled this out about a week ago, and that a year ago you were looking into safety and really ramping up safety. I just don't understand why you wouldn't have conveyed that to us. So
I said I rolled out which part a week ago? I apologize.
A week ago, so you did safety a year ago, and a week ago you decided no alleys.
No, it's been, I apologize, continue.
So residents ended up with yellow things on their trash cans telling them they had to move it with no advanced warning. And I think that you would have gotten a better response had they had got an advanced warning, such as something in their mailbox or something telling them, you know, coming eventually, or in a year, or in 2 weeks' time. So I just, in the contract, maybe if the future contracts, we could negotiate something of that venture anyways, to say if something changes, then our residents will get advance warning of that change.
Yeah, some of the timing was not ideal. We'd started notification probably, I would say roughly about 4 to 5, maybe 6 weeks ago, and we tagged the cans a couple times. And then I want to say it's been about a week or two that we've not been servicing the alleys. So within the past, I would say 2 weeks is when we've been able to run the different style of trucks up here. Initially, they did skip some of the alleys, and they said, you know, these alleys are just too tight. And then I caught wind of it, and it was, you know, a day late and a dollar short. And that's when I contacted Paul, because I definitely want to make sure that we go through the process of notifying the residents, notifying the city, and going through that. Did that happen flawlessly on the alleys? No. And that's a learning curve for a lot of the management team that I have in place. And that's something that, you know, we can only learn from our mistakes in the past. But without a doubt, that definitely could have been done better.
Jeremy, I have a few comments or questions. Thank you again for coming up and explaining some of this. Again, Globe is unique. I mean, we have a high percentage of our city or our streets that are accessible, but there are those ones that are very difficult to get to. And I have visited a couple of the areas where you're backing up to, and I support the safety issue of you backing up with not a spotter. Coming from the fire service, if you kill one person in Arizona or in the United States, it's one too many. And we've had firefighters get run over, get killed, get severely injured because they didn't have a spotter to back up one of those big trucks up, because there's a lot of blind spots in. So I support that wholly. But it's up to us as a council to come up with a solution to be able to service those areas. If you're not going to back up to those streets, and we need to find an alternative for these areas. And I think as a council, that's what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks, to try and satisfy these areas that we're not getting to. I agree with the drivers. We need to find somebody local because a lot of time is spent on the road. The other thing is, and I think you're going to hear some of the comments from probably some of the speakers that are going to speak. You know, we know what's going on there, but what we've heard is a customer service. The garbages that are not being picked up individual vehicle, individual garbages. You go to a certain area, everybody's picked up, and there's 1 or 2 homes that aren't picked up. And then they have garbages out in their street for 2 weeks. And these are accessible streets. It's in my area where I live, and we're very easy to get to, but we're not getting that customer service, or they dump a garbage and there's stuff all over the floor, the ground, and they just drive off with it. So I think that's what we're looking for drivers that really care for our community, care for our city, and take care of, in a way that, we're satisfied with.
Without a doubt, and that's the level of service that I expect and I want to give you guys also. As far as if we go down a street and all the cans are dumped and there's 1 or 2 that's not, it's really hard to say why that would happen. Oftentimes, and not every, oftentimes the container wasn't out. Does the driver usually just, decide to leave a can or 2 on a street of 10? Typically, no. I mean, that's not how they run it. So it's hard to say case by case why that would happen. And that's one of the benefits of our having the camera system is we can GPS to see when that truck was on that street. So for one, we know if we missed a whole section, we can look and say, yeah, we missed it. There was no truck. If we drove down it and we should have dumped everything, we can pull the camera clip of when that was, and we can see if the container was out or not. That's kind of helped on both sides, whatever the issue was. Sometimes was the driver looking to the left to make sure traffic was clear and missed the can on the right? Absolutely, that definitely happens. But that is something that we have the tools in place now to where we should be able to minimize that. One of the other challenges that we had is, and this is just industry issues, is we've had a lot of growth in the past year, and because of the economy, we used to be able to get a truck in about 3 to 4 months. Now it's about 10 to 12 months. So we used to park a spare truck at our location in Miami there, and we haven't had it there for several months because the delay on getting my new equipment extended the trucks that I needed. So I have a truck there now. I was able to get that truck back there, so we do have a spare in case something goes wrong. I mean, those trucks have a ton of moving parts, so now we do have a close option for an alternative truck. And within the next 60 days, I have 12 trucks that are coming in that are brand new for our fleet that's going to help give us that excess that we need to be able to keep a truck up there. So that's also something that's really hurt is if we have an issue with a truck, the mechanic from Apache Junction has to make that haul instead of switching out trucks, and then we can worry about the truck when it's sitting at the storage yard. So that's my problem and my issue, but obviously the residents pay the price. But that's something that we have been able to alleviate, so that should help minimize that going forward.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think in the past you had a chaser pickup or something that used to follow the trucks, and if there was garbage left out or left over, they would pick it up. I saw that a couple of times in my area.
At one time we did do that. We had that. The reason we were doing that was because we were also collecting bulk, and that was on the original contract, so we were using that person to get the bulk, the large item bulk. The new contract did not have any bulk in it at all, and we said that we would still offer that bulk even though that wasn't part of the RFP, because we felt that was a service that the city needed and the residents utilized. My guess was maybe it just got left off. I don't really know. So we still are offering that bulk, but what we are doing instead of having that driver or that additional helper at all times whenever the bulk was, is we schedule it so it's 1 day a month instead. Because we were offering that at no charge in essence, because the competition wasn't, because that wasn't what was requested. We were just trying to limit the costs, and we cut that down to 1 day a month where we go up and then we're able to grab all the bulk at one time. So that would be the difference between the two.
Ready?
So some of the complaints or, concerns that our citizens have is when they do get missed. Whether it's for whatever reason, breakdown, inclement weather, employee, calling in sick, whatever it might be. What do you have in place to mitigate that, to come back and say, okay, we missed it today, but we'll be back tomorrow to capture that? Because in service, I understand there are some failures, right? But what do you have in place to come back and correct that?
What recently you might have seen, we've had several trucks that you've seen 2 people in it, and the reason for that is because we're training, so we have more people that are familiar with the city and the roads. Back in the valley, if we do an HOA, we can hand someone a map, and if they've never been in it, they go up and down every street, dump every can. It's not that difficult. You can't do that with this city, so we really have to have someone that's familiar with it. Otherwise, it puts them at great risk, just because even the roads that we're servicing, some of them are, let's just say, challenging. And I want to make sure that I'm not putting a driver in a situation where he doesn't know if this road goes through. He doesn't know if he can come around on the back end, and he may not be able to. And that's where we don't want to put him in that situation. So that's been kind of the difficulty, is having, not just 2 guys that know the route, but we need to have 3 or 4 or 5 guys. That way we have that redundancy. So over the past couple months, we have definitely had quite a bit of time where there's been 2 drivers in the truck. And now we have, at this point, we have 4 people that are familiar with the city of Globe. So we've got to that excess. I know within probably the past 2 weeks, we had it where we couldn't finish on a day, and then we got it the next day, and we were able to send 2 guys up there to finish the previous days, and then obviously that day's trash still needed to go, so then we were able to get all of it caught up. That was an issue of not having a spare truck up here. Now we've been able to get the spare truck up here, so that should help minimize that also. But that's what we've done. At this point, we do have 4 people that are trained up here.
Okay. Jeremy, and your drivers being out of town, what's the max hours they can drive in a day?
12 hours is really what we
they're dedicating 9 hours to Globe. If we had a local person, they would get the full 12 hours here in the area then, instead of wasting 3 hours on the road back and forth then, right?
Yes. For the trash. Yes, absolutely. Not for the recyclable, for the trash. Mm-hmm.
I have a question regarding the recyclable. I was listening to a lot of news reports saying that the market has fallen out of recyclables, that there's basically all these loads ready to go to these countries that no longer want them. How is that affecting recycling, and because I know I've gotten complaints that they see, they make the effort to separate them, and then they get it dumped into the regular garbage. Mm-hmm. And I know that there are times when you just have to do that because of your timing. But what about the market, and what does that mean for recycling going forward?
We should never be doing that, dumping both cans. There have been instances that's happened. The drivers know that. Sometimes they take things into their own hands, unfortunately. The one scenario that I can say honestly that I don't argue with is if we have a miss, whether it be us or the customer, it doesn't really matter. If we send a truck out of the way to get the one location, I let them know, just dump both cans. As far as doing a whole neighborhood, that should not happen at all. As far as the market is concerned, it's been probably about 2 years now, I think it's where we're at, that the market's really started to take a turn. It's gotten very, very extremely difficult. We had a period where all of our mixed paper, we weren't able to sell for, I want to say, about 8 months, and we were stockpiling it, and we had over 1,200 bales, big bales of mixed paper. Since that time, things have turned around a little bit, and I am able to move all of that material. Certain types of plastics are still very, very difficult, and that's probably a lot of what you're seeing in the news is mixed papers and plastics. Metals are handled domestically. That's not really a big deal. Cardboard, the value has drastically dropped, but it is still moved locally. It's the plastics and the mixed paper that's very, very challenging. A lot of that has to do with China. China was number one by far. They took everything. And they speculated, they kind of said, hey, when this date happens, we're going to quit taking it. Hey, when this date happens, we're going to quit taking it. And what they did was their contamination percentage used to be at about 10%, and they cut it and said, we won't take anything that's over 0.5%. So the problem we had was all the sorting lines are set up to meet a certain spec, and then they cut it drastically, and we're just not able to achieve that without putting in a whole bunch of money into sorting it to that level. And then the price dropped also. So putting a whole bunch of money into something and get paid a lot less makes it really, really challenging. So those are the 2 markets that have struggled the most. Everything is moving now, but it's drastically less. And in the past, you would quote things planning on making a certain amount from the recyclables. Obviously, it went up and down, but it went up and down here. It didn't here. It's literally the worst it's been in 35 years right now. So it is very, very challenging, and that's being gentle.
So I thought that Rad was asking the city to stop the recycling, moratorium on the recycling. Is that not the case?
One of the things that we are proposing is to have no change for the residents. They still have the 2 containers. They still get serviced on the same days. So there's no day-to-day effect at all for the residents. But instead of dumping one with the trash truck and one with the recycling, we would like to put a hold on that until the recycling market changes, and just dump them both in one truck. And instead of having 2 trucks drive all the streets, because right now 2 trucks drive all the streets, we would literally just cut it in half, and one truck would drive half the streets and dump both cans. The other truck would drive half the streets and dump both cans. That would, in essence, it would, lower the footprint and make it quicker for the drivers to finish their route. It would also improve the wear and tear on the streets, without a doubt, because those trucks are, probably some of the biggest trucks that drive on those residential streets day to day. So it would cut the wear and tear in half on those streets also. But that's what we're proposing, is for the time being, until the market changes. Whether the residents continue to sort or not, that's entirely up to them. But it would not affect their day-to-day routine of putting out the containers.
So would they still be charged for recycling?
Yes, because that would be the additional container that we would have there.
But a lot of people don't need 2 containers. What do we do with that? We have a lot of elderly people. We have a lot of small household people in this community. And I've always thought it was it is very unfair for, if it is a family of 2 and down the street is a family of 7, that we pay the same amount. That we have one, though the family of 2 has, way less than the family of 7. So how do we explain to our residents that they're going to still pay for recycling, but they're not going to get the service?
And I absolutely understand that. I mean, we're still going to have the 2 containers there, so they're not going to get the material isn't going to be recycled, but it is still going to be removed. Whether they need it or not, unfortunately, that's kind of the nature of the business. There have been models where you weigh the trash and you pay by the pound of usage, and those models are very expensive. So at the end of the day, you might be paying less than the person down the street, but you would probably be paying more than you are now, even if you use a lot less. So that's the reason that model isn't a very common model. Is it necessarily fair to someone that has a household of 8 and a household of 1 or 2? Potentially no, but that's something that is not. That's something that I can't really help correct.
I understand, but is it fair to charge our residents for recycling when they're not? When they had no choice on recycling, they were told you're going to be billed for it and you're going to pay it. Secondly, now we're telling them, well, we're not going to offer that anymore, but we're still going to charge you. That doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I mean, what we're charging them for is the service, that we're still dumping the same 2 cans. We're just putting it in a different destination.
Only use 1 can, which the majority of them.
Which is the current situation is now, yeah. So the problem over what you're referring to has been an issue for 7 years or however long the life of the contract. Is it going to continue being an issue? Probably.
So if we were getting rid of recycling, could we then just get rid of the blue can and then you would cut down the service because you're only picking up 1 can and not the 2?
That would sound good. The costs would drop, the revenue would drop, and then I would have to relook at how I can make the numbers add up and work out at the end of the day. And unfortunately, we can't service this at a loss, as much as I hate to say it. And if that put us in that situation, then we would have to address that at that time.
So what you're doing is, so what you're doing basically is you're still dumping the same trash no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're using recycle or not, because now you're going to have extra trash because you're not recycling. But you're having to pay now to dump the trash, the 2 trash cans. You're not making money on recycle then.
Correct. So me, you mean?
Yes.
Yes. Right now, it's actually costing me more to process recyclables than it is to dispose of trash.
I think I understand what Charlene's saying, and it works for me too. If I have a black can and a blue can, trash day, I might have a third of the blue can full and half of the black can full. If I get rid of the blue can, take that little third and put it in the black can, we're still gonna get charged.
Yeah, and absolutely, and I understand that. And the current situation is if that's the volume that you've had over the past 10 years, you could have always been in that situation. So that's what I mean. That's been an issue all along. It's an issue that, you know, whenever I talk to whether it's council or HOAs, that is something that gets brought up for that certain scenario. If we want to look at changing the price structure on that, you know, we can look at that, but I'm going to have to take that calculation. What I'm trying to do is our costs have drastically increased, far more than we predicted in the contract, far more than you know, like I said, recycling's been the worst in 35 years. So 10, 20, 15, you know, 25 years ago, this wouldn't have been predicted. So what I'm trying to do is come up with an alternative that is the most cost effective for everyone, without having to look at, you know, more cost increases or anything like that. That's what I'm kind of trying to do, is instead of changing the prices or the rates, you know, can we change the service slightly to help accommodate for those additional costs?
Make the service better for the same, because there's a lot of people sitting here that have very bad service, and mine gets not picked up at least once a month, and I gotta go clean up all the javelinas that have, you know, that they've knocked it all down the hill. This goes on so much in this community, and now we're telling our residents we're gonna give you less service, we're still gonna charge you. What's in it for them?
I mean, as far as the residents, I understand that it could be viewed as less service without a doubt. It's just, I guess, the final destination of where the truck is going is really the only change. Yes, they're not getting recyclables. I absolutely understand that. But it's really, instead of bringing it to the recycle center, we want to dispose of it at this time. So as far as the service, without a doubt, I'm not going to sit here and say that service has been great, because I know it hasn't been. I mean, I knew what I was getting myself into today. I would much rather have had great service the past several months, and then I'm trying to talk about the recycling. So that wasn't my plan.
Why do you think the service has gotten so bad? Because we have seen a steady, for the last 6 or 8 months, steady decline in the service. Why is that?
Well, and part of what I was starting with is the drivers. We've had several drivers that have come in and out. It's such a demanding and quite frankly kind of scary. Some of the situations they get put in are quite scary, that I don't have a line of people that want to service some of those streets. They don't want to back up a quarter of a mile with minimal visibility. They don't want to be turning around at the edge of a cliff. So there's several aspects that is making it very challenging to get the drivers that want to consistently do that. So that's part of how this is going to help. That is it's going to be not quite as challenging of a route, because we're going to take away the situations that, for one, quite frankly, they're not safe, and two, that the drivers don't really want to put themselves into. And that's kind of the challenge I've had, is that this is a very unique city as far as where all the containers are located, and it's not a map that you go up and down every street that's real easy. It's very challenging, certain areas. So that's been a learning curve that we've had to go through, and we've gone through several drivers over the past year due to that.
Jeremy, I'd like to give an opportunity to some of the individuals or the citizens that have filled out speaker cards to ask questions. So you have any down there? I have one, and if we have some more, make sure that you filled out a speaker card if you wish to speak, okay? So the first one I have is Thea Wilshire.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jeremy, welcome back. I was on the council when we were discussing with you back in 2010, actually 2009, and then 2010. We were at a point where the city had been doing a pretty good job picking up its own trash. We encountered a couple of things that all happened. It was a perfect storm. We needed to have some new trucks purchased. We also were told that our landfill was going to be too full too soon, and it would be millions of dollars for us as an extended community to have to create a new landfill. So our appeal of going with you was that you could bring recycling when we as a community could not do that. So we went with you to reduce the impact on our landfill and to add recycling, which our community wanted. I understand recycling has dropped out, but the reason we had an additional recycling charge was because you were driving the recycling all the way to the valley. Now you're not. Now we're being impacted again. We also, when we were negotiating with you, we made it extremely clear that the community was asking and insisting that we not start to have cans out in the middle of streets, that your company needed to agree to pick up where the City of Globe had been picking up for decades, and you did. Now, if there's safety issues, then let's address those. If it's APS, if it's a phone, then tell us where the issues are. Let's see if we can raise them, because I'm sure they have industry standards as well. But for you to just come in and stop what people are paying for, very specifically paying for, I'm not paying for an extra can. I am paying that our landfill has a 20-year longer lifespan. It's not happening now. If you are not taking our recycling to the valley, you owe a refund to each of the City of Globe residents who have paid you for recycling and are not getting that. That's not okay. Yes, we want you safe. We want our citizens safe. But it's not okay for me. I got zero warning. I had zero explanation. Suddenly, my trash wasn't picked up, and I found an orange tag that said, no longer in the alley. No warning, no 6-week, no 8-week. I started lugging my cans to the front. Way out in the street, they were missed both of the last 2 weeks. That's not okay. But mainly, going back to why we went with you, we had a great trash service, but we needed new trucks, which was going to be millions of dollars, and we needed to protect our landfill. So now, with what you're doing, you're taking away the incentive for us to want to have you in our community, but also we are now defrauding our residents who are paying for a service they're not getting. Thank you.
Thank you, Thea. And Jeremy, I'm just going to allow them to come up and make their comments, and then you can rebuttal at the end, or however you want to comment at the end instead of, think every individual one. So we have Sue Gatewood.
Number one, as you can see, I'm not 6 foot tall. I'm about the same size as those dumpsters are. I'm 77 years old. I have cancer. I've had a lung removed, and I cannot push those cans empty, let alone when they're full. I would have to go about a fourth of the way out of the alley, up Sycamore Hill, and on to a fourth of 3rd Street. Talk about safety. You want to put trash cans on 3rd Street? It's a very busy street. Example, today they had a fire down on the highway. Where do you think those cars go when they can't get down there? 3rd Street, because there's a stoplight at Ash and 3rd Street. It's a very busy street. Number two, even when they were emptying the cans in the alley, there was trash all over everywhere. And if they weren't doing it, the Javelinas was doing it. So now we have it on 3rd Street, and the Javelinas come and knock them over, and the trash is out in the middle of 3rd Street and the can. Whose safety is that? I'm not able to go out and get it. You think these cars that come through there is gonna stop and do it? No. So that's a safety issue. As far as my alley, they do not have to back up. They can enter it and leave on the other end. As far as the trucks can get through for lines, the power lines that's not an issue. My cans, the city came and moved my cans out front for me 1 week. And when they did, when the trucks came to empty the cans, there was a tree there that had a low limb on it. The driver took time to get out and saw the limbs off of my tree. If he's got time to do that, they got time to empty the cans in the alley. I'm sorry. I don't have any sympathy for them. The money issue. You go by the chamber, and it says, shop local. Spend your money in the city. Are we spending our money in the city? No, we're sending it to Mesa. I mean, how many other things are we sending to Mesa? The city is not shopping locally, but they want the citizens to shop locally. I just don't see that there's a solution for what is happening. As far as getting a notice, I haven't had trash pickup, counting today, for 4 weeks. They never picked my trash up today. Now, I live by myself. I have one little sack of trash a week. Granted, that's not very much, but I pay the same as, like you said, a family of 7.
You probably pay your bill whether you're trash.
I paid my water bill and my trash pickup was on it, yes. But yet I haven't had. And I said to the lady at the city, which is not her fault, she's doing her job. She's doing the best she can do with all the complaints, I'm sure. I told her, I said, well then, if you're not gonna pick up my trash, then why should I have to pay that fee? And she said, oh, you have to pay it. It's mandatory, you will pay that. I said, well then who's gonna pick up my trash? I gotta hire somebody else to come and pick up my trash and take it to the dump and then pay the dump fees? So I'm paying twice. You know, when you pay for something and you don't get the services, that's almost like fraud. I'm sorry, I think that, and I never got any notices. If the water company had wanted to raise our rates, it would have been in the paper, on the radio, on our water bill, at my door, in the mail, something. I never saw anything. The day I talked to Rad, I went out to the trash because they told me, oh, you got an orange sticker on your trans. No, I had nothing. I never received anything. As far as pushing the cans, I couldn't push my cans if I was able. There's no wheels on them. One of them's got a hole in it. They're just, I mean, they tear them up more than I pay for. I just think that the city needs to resolve this issue however they can resolve it.
Thank you, Sue. I have Michelle Johnson.
Well, most of my questions have been answered already. Thank you. One of them, along with the lady just spoke, no notices, nothing. The whole month of April, I got no pickup of trash at all. Recycle twice. I spoke with your customer service. Am I allowed to say names? Jessica, I believe, is manager or something, and was guaranteed a refund. I had to get a hold of the city and talk to whoever in the city to let them know to call you all to make sure there's a refund on our bill. There wasn't for this month. I spoke with the lady in the city. She says she's trying and trying to get with whoever on your side, because I guess there's a lot of people demanding refunds and is not getting any customer service call back at all. And I've talked to several people via Facebook, whatnot, that they have gone 2-3 months with customer service saying they're going to call back. They have 24 hours to call back, no callbacks. Customer service, no one's calling us and telling us anything. And that's a problem. For the whole month of April, no trash pickup. We had to take our trash to the dump because it's unhealthy. It's getting summer, flies are coming, we can't have that sitting around. Recycle twice. I want to thank you today. For the first time in a month and 2 weeks, my trash and recycle was picked up. And I'm hoping it wasn't because of this meeting. I'm hoping it's because they got their stuff together. But that's my question. Are you going to offer refunds for those who didn't get service? Because we paid for something that we didn't get. And to me, that's not fair. You know, I know you wouldn't pay for something that you weren't getting.
Yeah, he'll at the end, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Lisa Bittner?
Good evening. All the statements and concerns that have already been mentioned are also mine. I have a couple of others. I did not get a sticker. The only way I found out was my neighbor came out and said, "Did you know we're not going to have any more alley pickup?" So what are you talking about? She told me that she had talked to one of the drivers. That's how she knew. I called the city, and the city, I said, "Why didn't you guys notify us? I didn't see it on the bill. I didn't see it." And I was told by the woman that it was to be RAD that was notifying everybody through the stickers. Never got the sticker. Didn't get my trash picked up. My 2 cans were absolutely full. I live up on 2nd Street, and our alley has not gotten any narrower. Our lines have not come down that I know of. And the only way I could get them to the front, and I told this to the woman at RAD, is thank goodness I had a truck. I have a truck. I had to take all my garbage out, get my cans, put them in the truck, bring everything around to the front, and figure out how am I going to camouflage these 2 ugly cans in front of my house. So I moved all my flower pots except for 2. I got everything filled in. I put my trash out. That was not this week, but last week. Put it out. They were closed, so there was no cans, no bags hanging out. I had an emergency down in the valley. I had to leave on Tuesday morning, and my cans are out, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to get picked up. It's going to be perfect. I came back on Wednesday. 1 garbage can, 1 bag was torn. It was out in the street. I had my dozen eggshells and the whole bit. It was garbage. Cleaned that up, put it back. I didn't put it out today because I don't have that much garbage. So I called again to RAD, and this time I spoke with an Yvette. And I apologized to her because I was pretty angry about everything. And she kept saying, well, unfortunately, we're not going to do this. Unfortunately, this isn't going to happen. I said, it's not unfortunate for you. It's unfortunate for us. So I just thought I had a mattress and a couple of garden umbrella frames out in the alley. I called in March and asked for them to be picked up. They weren't. I called back in April, and she said, oh, you just happened to miss the date. We won't pick them up until May. So I think Globe is the last Thursday of the month that they do bulk pickup. And just before I hung up, I thought, you know, I'm going to ask you one more question. Are you going to pick up bulk in the alley? She said no. So I said, okay. No, it was unfortunately no. And I said, no, it's not unfortunate for you. It's unfortunate for me. So now, fortunately, I have a truck. Now I have to take all my bulk trash, bring it to the front of my house, which makes our neighborhood look not the best. And now I can't do it until the last Thursday of the month. And I just don't know if it's a regular huge garbage can truck or is it a flatbed or what picks up bulk because you're told you could only have a certain size. Can you tell me which one that is? So it's as big as the garbage trucks? So they're gonna pick up a mattress or whatever it is, how many cubic feet that you can use in there, and put it in a regular garbage truck and then take off with it. Does it fit in alleys? I kind of feel like we're getting a lot of excuses. I don't understand, don't know, didn't keep up with what the contract was, but it just seems like we're listening to what the hard parts of recycling and garbage collection. That's his job. That's their job. Our job is to pay for it, and we've been doing that. And again, no notification. It's 2 weeks that I didn't have the garbage collection. I personally, and she said, well, unfortunately, it's not going to be there. I said, but unfortunately for me, I either have to do the hard work or I have to pay somebody to do the hard work to get my cans to the front of the house. I just think this needs to be a serious, serious consideration whether or not that company can do what they promised to do and what they're getting paid to do, or what the next step is. I know we used to have the trucks that rode through town, and the guys on the back of the truck, they came, they filled up the garbage trucks, and it was all local people. I have never seen an ad for a CDL driver that's a local person. I've never seen anything that could come from the college, something that says, you know what? If we've got civic going on, if we've got other things going on, what can we do for our community to service our community, to keep our, like you said, our money local? And we don't have that. So, yeah, my garbage cans are in the front. I've got a couple of big white pots. I got to get some big flowers. There's some big trees to cover them up because they look bad. And that's not what the city of Globe should look like. You drive down the street, Tuesdays is my area, and it's the cans. If they're there, fine. If they're tipped over, they're tipped over. And the javelina, they come across 2nd Street and they hit also. So aesthetics, I think in the newspaper, whoever wrote the article said something about the aesthetics, and it doesn't look good for Globe. It really doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. John Ricketts.
Well, our house is next door to Mrs. Bittner and between Sylvia. Okay? So we're in your district. And everything anybody said here is true. And I have witnessed his people, and it's been going on a lot longer than a couple of months, dumping recycles into trash side by side. Well, if you're not going to do it, take your can, we'll put it all in one, and they only got to pick up one can. I don't like people trying to blow smoke up my rear end, okay? He's charging us for 2 cans, and they're dumping 2 cans in there. He'd save time if they only had to dump 1 can. So his cost factors can be dealt with by yanking that can out of there and just say, put all your crap in one, because we're not going to recycle it anyway. He'd save his driver time, less risk, less danger, and not all alleys are the same, okay? 2nd Street, we got a beautiful wide alley. All the lines are on the west side of the alley. Tell everybody to put their cans on the east side of the alley. Go right through and you can get it. And I watch one of your articulating trucks now. You've got little tractors pulling trailers, which are longer and bigger than the old single units. I drove truck for 50 years. I'm a retired truck driver. So don't tell me about trucks and drivers. So, and I watched one of his drivers at the end of the alley on Cottonwood Street with one of those little articulating tractors trying to do a U-turn in the middle of Cottonwood. We all know what Cottonwood's like, don't we now? That's dangerous. That's your man putting everybody at risk because he's doing stupid crap. Pardon my little excited here, because it's ridiculous. Go on social media. Everybody, every week, people missing trash all over town. And I drove up and down the streets today because we got another piece of property on Apache. And it looked like New York City everywhere, trash cans in the street. I mean, this is ridiculous. And like 2nd Street, our house, you got to pull up 2 tiers, foot-high tiers, trying to drag a trash can up a tier, uphill to the next tier, uphill, out to the front of the house, up steps to get it out onto the street, off a curb that's this high. You've been up there, Mr. Stapleton. And that's a nice white, there's no reason that alley can't be picked up in the alley. And like I said, putting cans on, and people have to park on the street too. That's the other thing. So now you got to put your can literally out in the traffic lanes. This is stupid. You're asking, and like, take 4th Street. That thing's on the close to probably 20% grade. Just a little strong wind, and that can's gonna go. Poof. You know, I like I said, I feel like he's robbing people. Like she said, if you're gonna put it all in one can, they only gotta pick up one can. Why are we paying for 2? So I'd rather put it in one can, tell them to take their blue cans and take them back home and get them the heck out of here. Why should the people of Globe have to pay for that crap? I'm a little passionate. I'm retired. My money's, you know, I like to spend it wisely. And so, anyway, I'm sorry, but I just think you guys ought to come down on our side. We paid the taxes, we pay for his service, and as from what I have seen, it's a pretty sorry service, and I'm sorry. And like I said, I'm a retired truck driver. Don't tell me about risk. I've driven big rigs in New York City, Chicago, Houston, all over this country, and for 3 years right here in Globe, I worked for ONC, pulling a tractor and trailer, making deliveries in these alleys, in this community, in Winkleman and Hayden and Superior. And if you properly train your people and you hire professionals, they won't tear crap up. And that's a fact. Truck drivers are supposed to be the pros. They're getting paid to be the pro, and you're supposed to do the pro. And if you're backing up, GOAL. Put it on the mirrors. They sell little stickers. Get out and look. And I've done it for 50 years. And I never tore down a line anywhere. Be careful. That's all it is. Take your time and be careful. Trouble is, I watch it even down in the valley. These garbage truck drivers, they drive like a bat out of you know where. Take your time. Accidents happen when you get careless. And when you get in a hurry, you get careless. Take an extra minute. You do when you're backing out of uptown. You got to be careful, or you'll back into somebody. People don't slow down when they see you backing in. You have to slam on your brakes and wait. You know, take your time. Be careful. Hire professionals. Maybe he may have to pay a little more, but he's charging you for 2 pickups when he's only doing 1. So I don't know.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome. I'm sorry it took so long.
Larry Alderman?
It is my distinct pleasure to address you folks from this side. Now I see what it looks like from this side. I'm not going to be harsh or anything, but I do have a couple of comments. First of all, I was on the committee and on the council that originally decided to go with RAD, and we did make a contract for trash and recycles. This is the first time, I'm glad it came. This is the first time I heard that we're not going to be recycling. And that's disappointing. And like the rest, I'm not in favor of spending money where it's not going to be used for the purpose that it was supposed to be. I do want to caution you guys. I've heard comments about spending money and keeping it here. We can do it ourselves. One of the things is the cost associated with doing it ourselves. First of all, the capital outlay for vehicles, the cost of employees. One of the things that is a tremendous cost is the injury aspect, the safety aspect. And we're going to have to deal with the same issues that RAD's dealing with. I can only see one way when you guys go to talk about this is to renegotiate the contract with strong language to provide coverage for the recycle issue, and also if there's a possibility of putting out another RFP to others who want to do this service, including waste management or even locally. We have local people who might be able to do this. Copper State might be one of them. They seem to do a pretty good job of negotiating these difficult turns and alleys, so forth. But I'm not in favor of paying for a trash can I don't use. I heard your comment, Charlene, about individual family size. We don't have that much, my wife and I. We're old people. Diapers don't take up a lot of, anyway, I'm just kidding. It's a formidable challenge to try and do that by weight, as Jeremy mentioned. You just have to, sometimes you have to eat it. And so I hopefully I've come here with not just aggravated circumstances and yelling at you, but possibly some solutions. So you guys asked some very difficult questions. I'm sure you're going to have to ask difficult questions between yourselves in executive session. And we certainly owe an obligation to our constituency. And hopefully anyone that follows me will have a solution instead of just a complaint. Although it is good to know what the complaints are so that you can address them, and whoever else, if we have to have somebody else negotiate with someone else for another contract. But if there's anything I can do to help you as far as suggestions, let me know. But I know that most of you are going to go, thank you very much for that suggestion. At any rate, I really appreciate what you guys do and the tough questions that you did ask. God bless you.
Thank you, Larry.
We love you, Larry.
Alan Critch?
Good evening. I haven't heard anything I disagree with, so I'm going to keep this really short. We live up on Juniper in Fernando Shipley's district, and to say that it was erratic is being very kind. They'd pick up some weeks, wouldn't pick up. And my issue is that the customer service is so bad that if we have to call the city to find out you're not going to pick up my garbage, and then to find out that I live on such an unsafe street they can't back up it, and I hear that from the city, I don't hear that from the company that's picking up the garbage. There's a customer service issue there big time. And I can only hope that the fire chief is going to be able to get the fire truck up that street if there's ever a fire there, given that it suddenly became unsafe after as many years as they've been picking it up. That said, I would like to give a shout out to Fernando, my councilman, and to the public works crews, because we kept after it. Are they going to pick it up? What's going on? And they finally have got Copper State, I believe, is picking it up now. And the day that Fernando said, put your garbage out, if they don't pick it up, we will, and the city came behind RAD and checked as far as I know, checked every house, made sure it was done right. So thank you to the public works crew. And then, let's see, Copper State's been picking it up for 2 weeks, And last week, my understanding is RAD came up on Friday, but of course, nobody's garbage was out because we're with Copper State now, so. But the customer service is very upsetting that I had no idea that it was as bad as it is, that the alleys aren't being picked up. I knew there was an issue downtown with alleys, but there's a real communication problem here that you're going to have to work on, so thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Linda Gross?
I'll keep this short. I agree with everything that everybody said. I want to go back to what Thea said about the whole recycling issue. It is not just about whether it fits into one can. It's about the fact that we were lowering our cost and extending the life of our landfill. So you are really missing the boat on that. The point I wanted to make here is I worked for a boss one time who used to screw up, and customers absolutely loved him. And the reason why they loved him is because when he screwed up, he did such a good job of fixing the problem that they loved him. And what I've heard from RAD tonight is not an effort to try to own up to those mistakes. What Waste Management Pro would look at a contract like this and say, we are going to overnight quit picking up trash cans in alleyways, and think there was not going to be a problem. So I would hope that you would have known that there was going to be a problem, and if there were all these issues that all of a sudden you were looking at, then like my old boss, you would have been out there on foot in the alleys with extra people pulling those trash cans out saying, you know, we got this problem and we're working on it, but we're going to be there and take care of you until we figure out a solution that works for everybody. Your service to this community has been so poor, and your response to the issues have been so poor, that I hope that the city will consider alternatives.
Thank you, Linda. John Cornell?
I've had service problems, but I really don't want to talk about that. The mayor said we should have local people. So as long as RAD has a contract with the city for removal, the radio station will offer a free ad on the radio to get you local people until you get all your people local, even if it takes 3 years. I don't care. We'll do it every day.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
That's all the cards I have. Shelley, you have any more? Thank you for your comments. Any comments, Jeremy?
I appreciate everyone that came up here and spoke, and like I said, I was expecting some of this, and it's fully deserved. We are working to remedy some of these. Some of the things that did happen in the past as far as the notification were not done properly, and that was something that was should have been handled at a different level, a lot better, and that's a learning curve that I'm working with those people in that place. I can't change the past, but I absolutely do understand that that was not proper. A couple things that I just want to point out that I have is we currently are still doing the recycling, and we are still bringing it to the valley. We're proposing not to, but we currently still are. As far as the power lines in the alleys, and maybe there's a couple alleyways that do have proper access, and I can have my management team go and look at those and reevaluate them. They did that, and that was the direction I was given, but I can have them do that again and photograph it. The one issue that I ran into with power line height when we did contact APS was they said that the power lines that go from the, and maybe this isn't accurate, but they said the power lines that actually go to the house, if those are not at the 13/6, then that is the responsibility of the homeowner. So I felt that having the homeowner raise those was probably not going to happen. So that was what they told me. Whether that's true or not, that is what I ran into when I did contact them. As far as the refunds, I know I saw those probably about a week or two ago, and those should have been responded to and they should have been sent to the city. I don't know if that has or hasn't happened, but that's something I can definitely follow up on, because that should have happened in, within a couple days of getting all that calculated and get sent off. So we definitely are going to send those refunds back. That's not a problem at all. And then on the free radio ad, I absolutely will take you up on that. And if I could hopefully get your information from Paul, but I definitely will do that, because like I said, I liked it when I had a driver that was from Globe. It was great. I just had not been able to duplicate that. And if, there's the availability, without a doubt, I would definitely like to do that. So is there any other questions that got brought up?
So I still would like you to address the 2-can thing. If people do not have 2 cans and they don't need 2 cans and you're not recycling the product that's going in the recycling can anyway, why are we forcing them to have 2 cans and charging them for recycling if they're not going to use it? I understand your point of view is, well, they can put trash in both cans. Many of us don't need to have trash in both cans, but we're still being forced to pay for it. I don't think that's right to our residents, to tell them you're going to pay for this and you're not going to get it.
What I was trying to accomplish by getting rid of the recycling is the incredible increase in costs that have happened over the past year or two. Is it fair to the residents, to the city, to us? Well, it's not fair to anyone. Everyone's victim, so it doesn't necessarily matter. What I'm trying to do is find a way that I can still get the residents the same service. Like I said, just bring the material to a different destination. That way it happens instead of a price increase or something along those lines. So if they don't want 2 containers, that's fine. They don't need it. If I'm going to start lowering prices, that's another issue I have, is I can't do this at a loss and then I have to come up with another alternative. So that's kind of the position that I'm in on the 2 containers. I don't mind taking away the second container, not charging them. It doesn't lower my costs any. So now I'm in another situation.
If 2 trucks are coming up the road every time, and now only 1 truck is, sure, it's lowering your costs. It's cutting it in half.
Without a doubt, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish. But I'm saying
that you just said it didn't lower your cost, but it is.
The money I save, though, if I take a lower rate in, if I don't charge for that second can, then it's lowering my cost, but it's also lowering the money that I'm coming in. So it's a neutral.
But your dump fees will be lower.
They're not going to change any. I'm still dumping the same amount, whether there's 1 or 2 cans. So I might save 8 seconds, 10 seconds by dumping that second can. A lot of people are probably going to put out the 1 container, and that's part of the calculation that I have in.
But you're still going to save. You're not going to run your route twice. You're not going to pay 2 men to run the same route. You're not going to pay 2 trucks and 2 fuels and 2 insurances and yada yada yada.
And
correct?
exactly, and that's the savings that I'm talking about by doing away with the recycling.
Savings for you, not for our residents, though.
Correct. Yeah, it is the savings, so that way I'm not doing this at a loss.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Jeremy, when we had talked, you had talked about this changing dynamic with China and the cost that you would get on paper and plastic. You bid this contract with the idea that part of the cost of picking up trash and Globe was going to be paid for on the profit you made on selling this stuff. And then you explained to me that you don't have that anymore, yet you're still hauling the same. Can you explain, or do you feel comfortable
Absolutely.
explaining that again?
Yeah, the recyclables, there's a value on all the materials. So, a load that was mixed recyclable, I used to get paid roughly $125 for a ton. And that covered some of the cost to service the city. When that drops to, it's roughly in the ballpark of $10, I don't have that cost. I don't have that reimbursement anymore to cover the cost. So that's the, why I'm trying to minimize the recycling is because that helps cover the cost that, due to the market conditions, I'm trying to recoup. So that's something that I've been, absorbing, and it's not a long-term great business plan. And that's kind of been the challenge is, what's changed? Well, the commodity value has drastically changed. And that was something that was calculated in when the bid was put together. Like I said, it's the worst in 35 years, so it's not something that anyone saw coming. And you can look in the newspaper and you see this all over. I'm not the first person to do this. It's very common. I don't know if that helps any, but that's kind of the big factor that's been painful. Any other questions you guys might have? Thank you.
Question?
I'm sorry.
You got a question?
Yes,
Freddie?
I do.
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I do have a question, yeah. So, you know, some of our residents brought up some great points. The lady that obviously can't move her can because she's elderly and she's got a health condition. And the one that really struck me was that she can't even move because it doesn't have a wheel on it. What is your turnover rate for broken cans and getting them replaced? Now I know that may not or may not help you because of the situation you're in, but it's very difficult to drag a can without a wheel, right?
Without a doubt, yes. Without a doubt. As far as the equipment, the lids break, the wheels break, the containers break, the bodies break. All those are just kind of the nature of the business. And we do get those replaced when they have happened or when that happens. So if that's something that the office is aware of, we will get that repaired. If we're not aware of it, the drivers are supposed to call that in if that's a situation that they're not. Sometimes when the body's broken in the back, they won't recognize that. But if the lid's broken or the wheel's broken, they are supposed to get that called in and get that repaired. But that is something without a doubt that we'll replace that lid or the wheel, no problem at all. And that's something that's kind of a standard business.
Just what kind of timeline or what kind of turnaround is that? Is that within the week? Within that same week?
We usually do that on the same pickup day because that's most likely when the container's out. So if they call in on a Tuesday and their pickup day is Tuesdays, we like to do that on the following Tuesday when the container is out.
So the next pickup.
With the next pickup, yes.
Jeremy, I have a couple of comments too. Are you done? Would you have any more?
No.
You good?
Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. A lot of these issues that we heard today are a lot of customer service, and you heard it all. The notices should have been done in a different manner. They shouldn't have been just a sticker on there. There should have been some notice to the city. There should have been some notice to these individual residents too. And the issue about no pickup for weeks. I mean, when people don't get their garbage picked up for 6 weeks, that's unreasonable, totally unreasonable. I mean, that shouldn't happen. If it doesn't get picked up, then there's a problem there somewhere. The callback, I've called to RAD because I've had residents call me and have complaints, and you wait on the line for an hour to an hour and a half before anybody answers.
If they answer.
Yeah, and then you don't get a call back. I've been lucky that I have a number to Danielle now, direct, where I can talk to her direct, but if you call the regular line, the call center, it's horrible. You never get a call back, and you wait on the line 45 minutes, an hour and a half. I think the biggest problem we have, and again, I think the alleys need to be revisited. If I can see the alleyways in downtown, in the area here, that they're really narrow. I don't know how you got your trucks in there before, but some of these residence alleyways are still accessible. I don't know. I wrote down some addresses that I want to go look at. The one on 2nd Street. I saw some other ones, but I just don't understand a lot of that until I see it. The backup issue, that's something that we're going to have to deal with. That's a safety issue, but these are a lot of customer service issues that we're hearing today.
And I absolutely agree. I think, and a lot of this I've relied on my management team, and I'm going to follow up with them. If the alleyways are safe and accessible, then I do feel that that's something we should service. So I'm going to make sure that we do revisit each of those. But if one is not safe and accessible, then I am still going to stand by my number one value and putting the safety first. But I do think that that's more than reasonable, and we'll get back and look into that. As far as not having the proper communication, that's something that we can't go back on, but I know that was not proper. The phones are currently, we have about it depends on billing cycles, but we have about a 10-minute wait right now. We did have an hour wait, without a doubt, hands down. What happened was we actually acquired another company that was had a lot of issues that we had a learning curve on kind of clearing all those up. And during that time period, it really spiked the phones. So we had several months where we were going through that learning curve, but it's been on the lower side recently. So we should have that remedied. But as far as the alleys, I will definitely get back with, I'll get with Paul and verify each one to make sure that we're right where we need to be on those.
So I have two things. First of all, for all these years, you know, the city did it, then your guys did it, and nobody got hurt, and it was always safe. Why now all of a sudden is it not safe? Secondly, what are we gonna do with these people that have to drag these heavy cans up? They can't do it. They just can't do it. So what are we gonna do for them? What's your company gonna do for them? Because you're the one getting the money, not the city.
I feel that in the past, just because we didn't do it was safe. So I don't feel that in the past we've done it, no, it was always safe. I just think in the past we did it and we got lucky. As far as, you know, have we had issues? Yeah, we definitely had issues. I mean, I had it where we took down a power line and that resident lost all their appliances and didn't have air conditioning, and I wouldn't call that a safe scenario. So we have actually had scenarios in the past where it was a safety issue, and that's what we're trying to eliminate. You know, we could what if all day long, that could have been much worse, and I don't really want to have that happen. As far as, you know, if a container is something that the resident is ADA or cannot do that, that's something that we absolutely can work with on accommodating their needs. You know, I don't want to bring my trash out. Well, that's not necessarily a scenario that deserves that, but if they have legitimate needs, then we definitely will accommodate those, and I know we do have scenarios in Globe where we do that, and that's something that we can work with the city on identifying those residents.
There's hundreds of disabled, there's hundreds, thousands of elderly people. You're gonna pick up, you're saying here in this public forum with all these people hearing you, that you're gonna go out there and pick up those cans for these folks that can't do it.
If they're under ADA, absolutely, yes.
No, that's not what I said. There's a lot that are under ADA. There's a lot that are elderly, infirm, feeble, old, whatever. They can't do it. And you've picked up their trash up until this point. Now, what do we tell those
And you're
folks
talking
now?
about the ones in the alleyways.
That they
right?
can't drag
Okay.
those cans
So there's
through the yard or up
you know,
the steps.
there's not
or down
thousands, but there's some in the alleyways, and that's what we're doing is we're going to revisit those alleyways and see what we find on those alleyways, and see what scenarios we have on those, and then we can address it at that time.
And at that time, will you then put something in their mailbox or on their door hanger, not just on their trash can, but something to inform those residents in the alleyways that you deem unsafe? Then at that time, you'll address it to each resident that's in those alleyways that we noticed this alley is unsafe, and this is what compromise we have come up with.
Absolutely. The notification of those alleyways was not handled properly, and I'll make sure that I'm overseeing this one personally that it's done properly, and we will have the communication with them without a doubt.
Thank you.
Again, going back to the alleys, for years it hasn't been a problem, and all of a sudden, what everybody else is saying, it is a problem now. If you were to bring cans out from the alley, and you're going to charge the people. I know RAD charges for elderly or handicapped. What's that fee for?
I honestly don't know what the fees are offhand. I'd have to. I don't.
You're going to charge the residents money,
My
more money?
neighbor paid extra to have her cans rolled out.
Even if they're ADA or elderly or older oh, that's bad. Sorry, bad.
But you guys did service the alleys before, which is disturbing. And when, like I said, the driver told me I might get mugged.
Yeah,
This isn't that type of community.
No, and that one I don't know, but
he proceeded to pick up a can, missed the truck, landed all over the street, and took off. So that's absurd.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
But I would like to find out what that fee is.
Okay.
And if you're going to go back to, you know, parking on a major thoroughfare is, again, there is no major thoroughfare. There's side streets. your old drivers would go up the alley, pick them up, dump them, take them back at no additional cost. And now that's an issue.
So Sue, you get to not get recycling and pay for it. You also get to have somebody haul your can and pay for that too. There you go. That's good customer service.
Yeah, we can. Hold on. I got one more speaker card here. Marcia Scammell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I was going to sit there and keep my mouth shut, but I decided, no, we have to all get together and, bring up some suggestions, work as a team. I live in the Pioneer Hills area, so I have no idea that this was going on. Seriously, I did not. I didn't realize that people were having so many problems getting their trash picked up, in the downtown area. And I've only been here 3 years. Riding through the streets of Globe, some of them are scary. Even when I go up to the tail waggers to get my dogs groomed, I mean, I'm like looking, and I often think, how does the garbage truck get up here? Because I know I wouldn't drive it. And I'm thinking, I was listening to you, sir. You're a professional truck driver. Hey, we need you. No, seriously.
Applications in the back. Applications.
No, as an instructor, because you know how that truck is supposed to go. I used to watch the trucks in the valley, and I'm going, how, and because I used to wait for the bus, and I'm going, how did he do that? And when they back up in the grocery store, I wouldn't try it. But another thing, when you hire employees, do they have to take a drug test? Because if they do, we're screwed. A lot of people can't pass the drug test. Do you have them pass the drug test, especially when they're driving a truck?
They have to for CDL.
They have to.
Yeah, there's federal requirements.
Your customer service now I've never talked to them, but they sound like they're not connected right. They sound like they're missing the boat. Let me tell you, I have run into some doctor's offices. I'm a retired nurse. And when you're sitting there and going, huh, or what? And I mean, they're missing the message altogether. They're not tuned in to the patient or tuned in, or like your people apparently are not tuned in. What is the problem? We have to solve something here. Instead of, well, we can't do this and we can't do that. But if they're paying money for that extra can or whatever is going on, we try to put our heads together and find out, especially with these alleys. I mean, I've seen some of them, and I don't even want to drive through them with my car. And so I can imagine what you're going through with your trucks. I understand where everybody is coming from that have to have their trash picked up. But I'm also looking at you, and you're responsible for all these drivers. They have to be responsible. It's not a game. They have a weapon in their hands, that big truck. And I always make sure, well, with us, I make sure that, our trash cans are just lined up so that they can easily get to them. And I know in some places in Globe, you can't do that. You have to take them way out. But I would just like for all of us to try to put our heads together instead of saying, let's get another company. Let's try to fix this company. Let's try to find out why people are not getting the answer they want. And of course, your people, and you're trying, I see that you're trying, but then you're also responsible for these people that are driving these trucks. They're responsible for how they bring the truck back to make sure it's all in one piece. And you want to make sure that they're responsible drivers, like this gentleman. He drove across the country, so he knows. Yeah. And we could really keep things local, but these people have to take their job serious. I mean, when you're sitting there answering the phone, these people are representing you. They're representing you. And so how they speak, I would love to train them. I really would. I would love to train them, because when someone is upset, just like this little lady that came up here that has one lung, I'm sitting there watching her to make sure she doesn't have a heart attack because she was so upset. But, you know, and there's a lot of people up here that are elderly, and, you know, they do need help. And so we really have to put our heads together, find out what we can do about these alleys, and probably a lot of these wires were grandfathered in because they didn't have big trucks like this in the years back. So we have to think back on when these alleyways and roadways were constructed, because we didn't have what we have today. And seriously, I really think communication is important, and we have to work together as a team and come up with solutions. We've got the problems, now we have to figure out a way. And I really would like to see you succeed. I'm sitting there feeling bad for you, because you know, you're taking in all this stuff, but yet there's nobody on your side. You know, but I really would. I think you could do well if you just had a few citizens who are willing to help you. Like you say, try to hire local, especially the ones that know the ins and outs of the alleyways. Your front office needs trained. It needs trained badly, and I will do it. Because, you know, they're like I said, they're representing you. But I just wanted to let you know that I can see where, I try to look at both sides, and I see where you're trying, but you have so many people coming at you that, you know, it's kind of hard to unscramble the mess and think about what comes first. And I know safety is a big issue with you, because if anybody gets killed, God forbid, it's on you. I know.
Thank you, Marcia.
I have a big mouth.
Yeah, just one short comment. I think we've heard a lot of the same issues over and over again, and I think, you know, we really appreciate your comments. And we know that.
Last time I looked, the Postal Service still worked here in Low.
Yes.
This red tag thing, you're depending on the driver to do this, right, sir? Put those red stickers on, and that's just unreasonable, expect them to do that and get every trash can in this community. That's just asinine.
Yep.
And the other thing is, can we stay with the system we have until you guys make a decision? Because did you drive those streets today and see that mess?
We drive them every day.
Yeah, and it looked like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like I said, most of the alleys in here have been here since the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been the same size since the 1800s. And they've been picking up garbage in those alleys for well over 100 years. And I know on 2nd Street, Mr. Stapleton, and you know Sylvia, and you know the Vintners, and the people, that alley, there's nothing wrong with that alley. And 4th Street, there's nothing wrong with the alley on it, because I used to live on 4th Street too. And
Well, let's see what he comes up with. He's gonna personally check it out, so.
And just
No,
have a safety department, have your safety man come up, and he can say, okay, this alley's good, that one's not. You know, like I said, most good-sized trucking companies, they got safety people, and they're supposed to be out there, you know, some drivers
until you guys tell us, the city, low. It's still your city, guys. You people, it's your city, it's our city. And he's in here just sticking stickers on and tell us what we have to do in our city. That's you guys' decision, not his. And so can we continue to do what we're doing until you guys make a different decision, not him?
Well, we've taken all the comments in, and we appreciate all the comments, and yeah, it is a decision we're gonna have to discuss, and that's what I'd like to entertain a motion to go into e-session for further discussion for legal advice with our contract.
And Mr. Mayor, real quick, yes, I think we do need to go into e-session. I just wanted to cover a couple quick things just to wrap it up while it's fresh in everybody's head. On the alleyways on the commercial side, the alleys at Broad Street, we were talking about, Jeremy and I, if we need to pull those cans out to the streets, that they be picked up early in the morning, so if we're pulling them off the regular streets, not out of the alleys, they're not out there all day long blocking traffic, and that's something Jeremy and I talked about. We think we can arrange to get those picked up early. Jerry and I walked the alleys with, was that Southwest Gas? And we've talked to APS, and there's been creep as more meters and things come in. Those alleys are getting worse and worse. In the future, I plan to bring back a proposal for ordinance that will restrict future encroachment on those alleys. If we don't put something in place that keeps everybody, all the utilities, from putting more and more into those alleys, so that from this point forward, that they have to remedy that. So, first rule of holes, stop digging. So we'll work on that. On Juniper Street, just to explain, Rad and ourselves have on streets that they will not serve, and the pull is too far. On Juniper Street's a prime example where it's just unfeasible that somebody's going to drag cans back and forth, that we're providing that service through Copper State, and then we'll keep the billing on that. Rad won't collect we'll keep the money for those services. And I think I know Rad is still working to get a group of streets, and I think we have 4 right now that are just unserviceable, that we're going to try to figure out arrangements. But a commitment to council to work with Rad on the idea, if you have to move the cans, how far away is a reasonable effort to move them so they can pick them up? What's too far? What's not too far? Obviously, Juniper is too far. And then on the idea of handicapped and disabled people in the current contract, if they are documented handicapped or disabled in the contract, it reads that the contractor shall provide at no additional cost services for disabled or handicapped residents upon request. But my mom was sick. I know what that takes to get that documentation. So we can work with those people who truly are. It's probably a higher threshold than Councilman Giles that you think, but there is a category of people that I think do qualify for that, and they will take that responsibility. So you look at my notes real quick. We do have a reference to bulk trash in the contract. It was not left out, but it is limited to that once a month, and I think we can put an ad for Rad drivers on the city website under our jobs posting too, because we'd be
newspaper here too.
Yeah, got the newspaper. The mayor says there are a lot of firemen that have CDLs, so Mayor, with that, I don't want to interrupt your motion to go to e-session.
Motion made.
Second.
We have motion and second to go into e-session. All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passed.
And Mr. Mayor, and to the members of the public, this is not the end of the meeting. We're going into e-session. We'll come back out. We'll be in the middle of this item and continue the discussion and go on to a couple different items. I have no idea how long it's going to take, though.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it.
Never told me what it was, and it was
but they can't do it.
Down in the water.